مواقيت الصلاة, the timing of the salah. And we read hadith Abdullah ibn Amr radiallahu anhu ibn al-As and Buraidah and Abi Musa. So very quickly, if one of Mu'ad, just read the English translation quickly.
Narrated Abdullah ibn Amr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the Prophet,
and you can follow the screen, on the screen, the basically the hadith.
Narrated Abdullah ibn Amr radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the time of the Dhuhr prayer is when the sun passes the meridian and a man's shadow is of the same length as his height. It lasts until...
hold on. You got one? Okay.
Start from the beginning.
Yeah, from the beginning.
Narrated Abdullah bin Amr radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the time of the Dhuhr prayer is when the sun passes the meridian and a man's shadow is of the same length as his height. It lasts until the time of Asr prayer. The time of the Asr prayer is as long as the sun has not become yellow during its setting. The time of the Maghrib prayer is as long as the twilight does not disappear. The time of the Isha prayer is up to the midnight. And the time of the Fajr prayer is from the appearance of dawn as long as the sun has not risen. The rest of it is not Arabic.
Go ahead. Say that again.
I said the rest of it, but when the sun rises, abstain from prayer, first rise between the two horns of Shaitan. From the Arabic, it's an English problem. It's not part of the text.
It's an Arab.
I think he explained. Where from the Maghrib?
The last part. But when the sun rises, abstain from prayer, or rises between the two horns of Shaitan.
Yeah, that's not from the text. Huh?
Narrated Buraidah.
I think it's one of the narration. It's in the one of the narration, but it's not the one that he mentioned. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah. Now.
Narrated Buraidah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in another version of the hadith regarding Asr prayer, when the sun is white and clear, reported by Muslim, and Abu Musa radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrated regarding the time of Asr prayer, while the sun is high, reported by Muslim in another narration of the former hadith.
Yeah. Last week I talked about Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu and Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. Buraidah ibn al-Husayb al-Aslami, he became a Muslim before the Battle of Badr, but he never witnessed the Battle of Badr. And he witnessed Al-Hudaybiyah and Bay'at al-Ridwan, and he participated in 16 Ghazwa, a battle with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as Imam al-Bukhari and Muslim reported. And he lived in al-Basra and Khurasan, and during the time of Uthman radiallahu anh, he was in the army that went to Khurasan, north of Iran, and he died in Marw, which is also north of Iran, during the time of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, 63 Hijri. I don't know if any one of you knows his story when he became Muslim. It's an interesting story. Buraidah, he said that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam كان لا يتطير ولكن يتفاءل. He didn't have any form of superstitions, but he always, he's very optimistic. Whenever he hears something, he will not be superstitious of it, but when he sees something good, he will always think of something good will happen. هذا هو التفاؤل. Then he said the story about himself. He said, جعلت قريش 100 من الإبل. Quraysh have basically put 100 camels for whoever catch the Prophet ﷺ in his way from Mecca to Medina. He said, and I went to my people, and he said, 100 camels? So I got 70 soldiers. أخذت 70 راكبا. I got 70 horsemen from my tribe. And we start looking for the Prophet ﷺ everywhere. And we caught the Prophet ﷺ before he arrived to Medina. Actually, they were able to catch the Prophet ﷺ, and they saw the Prophet ﷺ in the night time. Then, for whatever reason, the whole entire intention of Buraidah changed when the moment he started talking to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, he asked me, he said, who are you? I said, Ana Buraidah. Then the Nabi ﷺ looked at Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, and he said, Ya Abu Bakr, baruda amruna wa saluh. He said, this is Buraidah, our matter, barud. إيش معنى our matter became, Buraidah comes from the word burudah, which it means something easy, okay? يعني كما يقال غنيمة باردة, يعني سهلة. يعني our matter became so easy, and things will be easy for us, okay? Or Buraidah could means also, يعني ثبت أمرنا. It means we will get what we want for sure, because the meaning of the word Buraidah, it means that as well. Then he said, where are you from? He said, Ana min Aslam. I'm from a tribe called Aslam. Then the Nabi looked at Abu Bakr and he said, Salimna bi-idhnillah. We are safe. And see how the Prophet ﷺ used the names, and he looked at the most positive meaning that these names carried. Then he said to Abu Bakr, that's it, we are safe. His name is Aslam, inshallah, Allah will give us salama. Then he said, Mimman min Aslam. From where exactly? From the tribe of Aslam. Tribe of Aslam is very big. So each time he asked him a question, something else pops up. So he said, قال أنا من بني سهم. I'm from Bani Sahm. Sahm, it means share. Okay? Then he said to him, خرج سهمك. Yani, Sahm has many meanings. One of it share, yani you will have a good share of goodness. Or Sahm, it means arrow. You guys ever read or heard how they used to pick a straw in the old days? Do you know how they pick a straw? It's not a straw. It's actually they bring arrows, okay, and they mix them together. So if you pick one of them, it means go. One of them, don't go. Do, don't do. So that's how it is. But they used to use what? Arrows. Siham. So when he said, خَرَجَ سَهْمُكَ, it is basically said, oh, you're from Bani Sahm? We basically, our arrow, we picked the right arrow. Which it means معناه الفلاح والظفر. يعني things will happen, will be good and turn good for us. Then after all this, the man said, and what about you? Who are you? So he saw how the Prophet ﷺ in the middle of the night, and he's no guard, he has 70 soldiers with him, and he still have that sense of optimism that he will be saved, and he will go to Medina, and he will survive, and he will prevail. There's no one can have that certainty in his heart unless that's really a prophet. And that really caught his attention. So he said, tell me, who are you? Then he said, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Rasulullah. I'm Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, and I'm the messenger of Allah. Then, without any hesitation, Buraidah said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anni Muhammadur Rasulullah. That's it. That's the only conversation happened between them. And he turned to be a Muslim. And he asked all his followers, he said, you followed me to fight Muhammad, now you follow me to support Muhammad. And they became Muslims. And he went back to his people, and they basically followed him because he was the leader. فَأَسْلَمَ بُرَيْدَهُ وَأَسْلَمَ مَعَهُ. And he said, if this is the case, this is in the night. In the morning, the Prophet ﷺ will enter Medina. So Nabi ﷺ said, لا تدخل المدينة إلا ومعك لواء. Something that in the culture at that time. So he took his turban and he tied it on the basically the spear, and it became a flag. And him and the 70 soldier horsemen behind him, all of them behind the Prophet ﷺ or surrounding the Prophet ﷺ. So he entered Medina with this grandiose look, He's entering Medina and 70 horsemen with their leaders around the Prophet ﷺ. And the story was reported by Tarikh al-Kabir ibn Khaythama and Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah mentioned it as well. Anyway, this is because Buraidah is not a common Sahabi that you hear his name, so I thought maybe it's good not to pass without mentioning him. So if we look at the hadith, he said in the hadith, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As start by saying, صلى النبي صلى الله عليه وقت الظهر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the time of dhuhr prayer is when the sun passes the meridian and the man's shadow is the same length as his height. Okay? And it lasts until the time of Asr comes. So here when the Prophet ﷺ started with the dhuhr, and we talked about this before, that this is one of the evidence that the ulama said that the first salah in the day. He said, when the sun zalat al-shams, when the sun moved from the meridian, أو في منتصف السماء, when the sun moved from the middle of the sky. Okay? From the middle of the sky. Zalat, it means moved. Zagat. Also there's another nation, dalakat, duluk al-shams, dahudat, all the same meaning and all came in different narrations, which it means it moved from the east toward the west. So it's exactly in the middle of the sky, okay, and it moved from the east to the west. And when it moved from the middle of the sky, that's what we call the dhuhr time started it. Pay attention to what I'm going to say. When it moves, it takes about, in modern language, and simply for you, it takes about 5, 6, 7 minutes until it moves completely from the middle of the sky towards the west. So just the moment it moves is not dhuhr time yet. You have to wait until the sun moves completely from that point in the middle of the sky, and that's about 7 minutes and that's where the dhuhr time starts. And the Nabi ﷺ said, and the shade of a man is like his length. Okay. It's hard for those who are not familiar with, don't go outdoor a lot. So let's say, the Prophet ﷺ said, when the man's shade, هذا نسميه في علم الأصول وصف غير مؤثر. This is a description, carries no meaning. A man. But what about a woman? So what about a plant? What about a stick? Can we say instead of a man a stick? Can we say a tree? Can we say a woman? Yes. That's what we call a description that has no is not a condition to be a man. It's just a description, just a word. So here, when the thing, okay, instead of the word man, the shadow of it equal to it. طيب. Can you see the shadow of this? I don't know, you can't. But if the sun here, in the middle here, this will have any shadow? No, because it's in the top of it. You have to be this way or that way. So when the sun starts moving towards the west, this will start producing what? Shadow. So when the shadow become equal to the length of it, but some of the fuqaha said no, the length of it plus that 5-7 minutes I told you. If let's happen you're gonna do a surviving trip or in the camping outside and you want to figure out the dhuhr, you cannot just you have to add to it, because when it's moved a little bit, it will produce a little bit of shadow. So basically that's when you add to the amount. So when it became equal to the length of it. In another word, if you do a line, it will be like this. So the length of this equal to this. That's when the dhuhr time end. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in this hadith when the dhuhr time end. Okay? He mentioned the end of the dhuhr time. And that's where the Asr Salah start. When the length or the shadow of the thing, it's equal to it, that's where the Asr Salah start. He said, وَكَانَ ظِلُّ الشَّيْءِ كَطُولِهِ. An-Nawawi rahimahullah and Ibn Qudamah said that the shadow of any human beings is 7.5 feet. 6.5 feet, sorry, 6.5 feet. I never tried that. I'll try that tomorrow. 6 feet and a half. He said the shadow of any human being is a human, like I would assume he meant like an average height person, I guess. He said, no, he said it is 6 feet and a half by the size of your own foot. He said 6 feet and a half by the size of your own foot. So if you look at your shadow, complete shadow, if you want to know when is my shadow equal to my height, he said you stand up and with your own foot, you put 6.5. If it's a baby, if it's a child, if it's it's 6.5, that's your shadow. That's what the Nawawi rahimahullah said. I doubt that this is very accurate for a reason, because if you go to the north or the south, that will impact actually the length of your shade. So I'll take that with a grain of salt. If you live especially in north side of the atmosphere, that will be a little bit different. That's why ulama rahimahullah said the shadow and the length of the shadow, it is a measurement that can be absolutely perfect in the Middle East or in the people who live in the middle of the atmosphere of the earth. But those who live up north or south, things can be a little bit different for them. Then in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned the issue of that the sun turns to tasfarru shams. Basically, that the sun will be in a yellowish color. The Prophet ﷺ said, when the time of Asr prayer is until the yellowing of the sun. Okay? So here the Prophet ﷺ is saying to us that Al-Asr until the sun is yellow, not until the sun goes down. And we will explain that in a little bit. Okay? So here the Prophet ﷺ told us that the time of Asr is all the time قال حتى تصفر الشمس, and that is when it's so yellowing. This is right before the sun set, right before the sun set, but not yet at Maghrib time. And that's become a problematic in the hadith, because we know that Asr goes all the way until Maghrib time. But this hadith said until it became yellowish, which is, right before sun set, in the dhahabi bayadiha, when there is no light coming out of it anymore. ما لم يغب الشفق. Then the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, for Maghrib, you pray Maghrib as long as the shafaq exists. What's a shafaq? A shafaq, there is two opinions among the scholars about this, and that led the scholar to differ over when Isha will start. So they said Maghrib from the sunset all the way to Ash-Shafaq. Ash-Shafaq, it is, according to the majority of the people of Arabic language, the linguistic scholars, said it is the redness of the sun. When the redness of the sun completely disappear, that means Isha start. When there is no more red in the horizon after the sunrise, that's where basically the Isha start. And there is plenty of narrations from the Arabs, even before Islam, that they recognize that this is a shafaq, which is the redness that you see in the horizon. Because some other scholars said, no, a shafaq, it's that white color that comes after that. And we'll talk a little bit more in details. Just I'm going over some of the words. Al-Layl, night, when the Prophet ﷺ said, an Isha prayer until half of the night. Night, in Arabic language, it is from the sunset to the Fajr. From sunset to Fajr. And some said no. Night is from sunset to sunrise. There's two opinions among the scholars. In Sharia, night is from sunset to Fajr. It's from sunset to Fajr. And this is what Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah said, that our deen, our religion have defined that the night ends with Fajr, and Fajr is the beginning of the day. So even if linguistically before Islam people consider night from sunset to sunrise, that's not anymore the case after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with this religion. And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said until the mid of the night. What that means in the mid of the night? What that means? is it like the mid sifatun lil-layl? What that exactly? In the nisful layl al-awsat, the middle of the night. So, al-ulama rahimahullah said, how would we look into that? They said, how do you translate it? It's a bad translation. Trying to figure out the best way to translate it to you guys. Then he said that the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, the Isha prayer is up to the middle of the night. The middle of the night. هو النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال نصف الليل الأوسط. The middle of the middle, if that makes sense. He said, Anybody has an idea how to translate that? نصف الليل الأوسط. The central portion of the middle of the night. The scholar said what that means. He said you look at the average night. They said in the days where the night and days are kind of equal, 12 hours, that's where that's what we take. So we say the middle of the night, it will be 6 hours after the sunset. That's where Isha, so after Maghrib, you count 6 hours, and that's what should be, that's the end of Salat al-Isha. So that's one opinion among the scholars. Okay? And this opinion was not ever popular, was not ever adopted by the four madhahib, even though some of the fuqaha said. But basically, al-ulama rahimahullah said that the Isha prayer all the way into the middle of the night, or to the last 2/3 of the night. That's where Isha prayer ends. And I will come to details about when every salah. So I just want to make sure that you understand the linguistic first. Then he said, when the Fajr comes. The Fajr, in Arabic language, the Fajr, it means appearing. And for me, important to understand the difference between the true Fajr and the life and the fake Fajr. The true Fajr, or Fajr al-Sadiq, okay, and somebody called al-Fajr al-Kadhib, the fake Fajr. The fake Fajr appear before the true Fajr. And how it appear? It appear in the shape, if you go out in the night, before Fajr, let's say, you go outside 1 hour before Fajr, or 40 minutes before Fajr. You will find in the sky, light like this, in the middle of the sky. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, it looks like the tail of the fox is shooting up in the middle of the sky. And it is light. And it goes straight up in the horizon. That's the fake Fajr. Okay? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, لا يغرنكم. Don't be deceived by this light. Don't think that this is Fajr. Okay? قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يغلبنكم. Don't let it basically mislead you. So you stop fasting or you pray. No, this is not the Fajr. Also, another thing that you will notice in this fake Fajr, when it goes straight to the horizon, if you look underneath of it, to the right and to the left, you will find darkness. And if you wait a little bit, it will disappear. When the true Fajr comes, that light in the middle disappear. The true Fajr never disappear. The true Fajr continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. Another thing, the true Fajr don't go straight to the middle of the sky. The true Fajr go to the horizon, to the surface like this. So you see the light like that. Never goes like this. When you see the light like this, that's not the Fajr, the true Fajr. The true Fajr goes like this above the earth. Okay? And underneath of it, nothing but light. There is no darkness. So that's how you basically differentiate between the true Fajr and the false Fajr, or false Fajr. That's a better translation. I'm saying this because if you pick any one of these time prayer, you might find in the time prayer differences between Fajr can reach to 25 minutes and 35 minutes. between one time prayer to another. And one of the problems that some of these time prayers, actually it was made according to the false Fajr. And the accurate one, it is basically taken considered the true Fajr. And I'll explain to you in a little bit who. Then he said in the narration, we pray Asr, and when we come back, the sun is still bayda naqiyya. Bayda, it means clear. So the sun, after we finish Asr prayer, and we go back to our home, while we're walking back to our home, we see the sun after Asr clear, strong, okay? Risen up in the sky. We see the heat of it. What that means? What that means? That means they pray Asr what? Early or late? Very early in the time. So he brought Hadith Buraidah. He brought Hadith Abu Musa to tell you that the Asr prayer used to end very early in the time, not late. Why? Because he wanted to refute the Hanafi's position, who delay Asr. So he brought this evidence to show you that Asr are prayed early during the Prophet ﷺ time. طيب. Let's go over the rules, and that's where we'll explain to you the hadith more in details. How do we start with Dhuhr? We said that the Dhuhr start when the sun moves from the middle of the sky. How do we know az-zawal? How do we know that the sun moved from the meridian of the sky? How we know that? A scholar said by two things. Number one, whenever you put a stick, whenever you put a stick and you see the shade start growing toward the east, because the sun going to the west, so your shade will be the opposite side. That's right. Makes sense? So if the sun goes like this toward the west, you will see that the shade of this, whatever stick or element you have, start growing toward the east. The more you see, the moment you see the shade start growing, you know that the Dhuhr time started. And they said that's the most simple way. But it has a shade for a little bit because it's in here, so you have a little bit of shade. But when you see it growing, you know the Dhuhr time started. And that's one of the most simple way. If you want to do earlier, you go before Dhuhr, and you will see the shade in the west. At one point, the shade disappear, and that means the sun in the middle of the sky. And when it disappear and it come back again toward the east, when it start growing toward the east, that means Dhuhr entered. طيب. There is a lot of details. I'm not expert in it. I'm not really an outdoor guy, watch and observe stuff like that. But they say the shade can grow faster in the summer and much slower in the winter, and the length of it can be different from the winter to the summer, and all this degrees of the sun and the heat, and there is a whole calculation for it. If you're interested, you can look at yourself. The other way to find out the Dhuhr time, let's say, hey, I don't want to have a shade, I don't look into shade, I'm not good at that. There is any other way you can figure it out? They said, yeah. They said, it is az-zawal al-falaki yusammuna. You go and to calculate. You look at when the sun rise, and when the sun set. So the sunrise now what time? What the sunrise these days? Huh? Sunrise. Not Fajr. Sunrise. 7:40. Okay, let's say 7:45. Okay, then you look at the sunset. What time? 7:30. Okay, then they said you go into this. Let's say 7:30, just to give you an example. So how many hours that? 12 hours. They said, then you go and basically you see 6 hours. The 12 divided by 2, 6. Add 6 to 7:30. 1:30, which is Dhuhr time. Got it? You take the 6 or the half, you add it to the sunrise, you get the Dhuhr time. You calculate from sunset, from sunrise to sunset. You divide it by 2, you take that number, you add it to the sunrise, you got the Dhuhr time. You got it? So that's another way, a simple way of, if you can't figure out the shade and you live in the north, you don't know if it's cold or hot or like all this confusing. They said that's how you do it. Yes?
Should we add like 7 minutes after the 6 hours?
If you calculate the 6 hours, they didn't say anything. They just said that. But when it comes to the moving of the sun, you add 5 minutes or so just for it to move completely. By the way, some scholars said, and you heard me saying that, not because I'm a scholar, but just copying the common thing, but scientifically maybe this is not an accurate statement, what I said. If you guys like geology, like study geology, the only time any object will not have a shade when the sun in the middle of the sky, the only time, which is you do need that 5 minutes, 6 minutes, if you are on the Tropic of Cancer. You know the Tropic of Cancer? Which is basically is the circle marking the latitude 23.5 degree north, whereas the sun is directly overhead at noon in June 21st. It's not every day even, only in June 21st. The beginning of the summer in the northern hemisphere. The quarter is the circle where the sun is directly overhead at noon on that day. So they said the only time it's June 21st on the Madar Saratan, the Tropic of Cancer. It's basically when there's an object that in that day, that's when there is no shade. But any other day, any other place in the world, you will always have a shade. It's impossible for it not to have a shade. It's because the way the earth is basically aligned with the sun. So that statement of the scholar when they said, in the middle of the sky when there is no shade, then the shades start growing, that's scientifically not accurate. You will always have a shade. That's why they said keep that 5 minutes until it grows. So just from us, this is some of the modern scholars said that this is, if you want to be inaccurate, you should pay attention to that. Right. There is some Muslim calendars. Unfortunately, they did not take in consideration that 5 minutes for Dhuhr. Okay? It's about 5 minutes, so it's not a big deal. But unfortunately, some of the calculation methods don't take in consideration that. They just look at, okay, we found that the sun produced a shade, but you know what? The shade is there even before the sun moved completely. So that's not an accurate sign. Whenever you see the shade growing toward the east, that's where the Dhuhr comes. But some calculation methods didn't take that in consideration. So that's why so many modern scholars said for Dhuhr time, it's always better to wait 5 minutes over the calendar just to be in the safe side. Especially if you follow Al-Qura calendar. The Prophet ﷺ said in Salatul Dhuhr, and the shade of the person, of the man, like the length of the person. The movement of the sun is the sign for the beginning of the Dhuhr, and when the shade became equal to the length of the person, that's the end of the Dhuhr. So Nabi ﷺ explained this short sentence, when Dhuhr start and when Dhuhr end. One of the rules that we learn from this hadith basically focus on the timing of the salah. So let's take them one by one. When each and every salah start. Number one, Salatul Dhuhr. And every salah I'll tell you when it start, when it end. Salatul Dhuhr, as we explained, when the sun moves from the middle of the sky toward the west, that's basically when the Salatul Dhuhr start. Just for those who like to increase a little bit of their information. To believe it or not, there were an old debate among يسمونه الخلاف القديم. Have you ever heard these terms? The old khilaf. Whenever you hear the word old khilaf, old debate, old dispute, it means a dispute took place between the companions or the early successor, but disappeared by that after that. So there is an old khilaf happened between the Sahaba if you are allowed to pray dhuhr before the zawal, before the sun even moved to where there was. Yani before the sun come to the middle of the sky, some of the Sahaba said you're allowed. And one of this khilaf happened, the result of this khilaf appear in what? In Salatul Jumu'ah. Because the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prayed Jumu'ah before the dhuhr time. Anyway, but after the time of the Sahaba and the early Tabi'een, there have been consensus among all the scholars that Salatul Dhuhr start after the sun moved from the middle of the sky. So there's no more two opinions about this. When it end? It end when the shade of the object equal to its length. Okay? That's where it ends. And when it ends, that's where Asr starts. And this hadith have a very interesting point. The hadith said that when it became equal to the length of it, that's when Asr start. So that Dhuhr ends and Asr start. That show you clearly that there is no area or no time between the two prayers. Yani when Dhuhr end, Asr start immediately. There is no like gap. There is no like 15 minutes or 10 minutes in between them, nothing. You might say, Sheikh, why would you even say that? I'm saying this because there is some of the fuqaha, especially the Malikis, believe that there is a time between the Asr and Dhuhr. It's not Asr time, nor it's Dhuhr time. Just kida. It's like the time between what? Sunrise and Dhuhr. When the sunrise and Dhuhr, that time, the daytime, it's not Dhuhr time and it's not what? Fajr time. So they said there is something similar to that between Dhuhr and Asr, and it's very short period of time. And some said no, that short period of time in between them is a period of time that's equal to praying 4 rak'ahs. Equal to pray 4 rak'ahs. They said if we pray Dhuhr in that time or Asr, it will count. Why? Why even people come up with this idea? They said because in Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Jibreel came to him in Mecca to teach him the timing of the Salah. So the first day he came and he prayed Dhuhr. When the hadith goes like this, when the object or the man's shade was equal to his length. The second day, he prayed Asr when the man or the object shade was equal to its length.
He prayed Dhuhr.
No, the second day he prayed Asr in the same time. First day Dhuhr, second day Asr in the same description. So that's what led the Malikiyya said. So that means that particular point or that particular time can work for both salah. Because the Nabi Sallallahu prayed one time Dhuhr here and one time what? Asr in the same time. So they said that means you can pray either salah in this. So they said, they call it waqt mushtarak, a joint time. But this understanding is not very accurate. Why? Because whenever we see, this is a general rules in Sharia, whenever we see evidence not clear like that and ambiguous and confusing, what do? How we understand it clearly?
Look at the other ones.
Ya salam alayk. We look to other evidence. We look to other narrations. And we find so many narrations like this one explicitly saying that Asr started at that time. And that's the end of Dhuhr. And Asr started at that time. And many other narrations as well. That it shows us that Dhuhr end when the shade equal to its length. So how do we understand Hadith Jibreel that he prayed in the same time twice? Al-ulama said, this first time he ended Dhuhr when the shade was equal to its length. And the second day he prayed Asr when the thing was equal to its length. So he ended Dhuhr in the last second of the Dhuhr time. And he prayed Asr next day in the first moment of the Asr time. So they looked like what? As if they done in the same time, but the reality, no. The Salat al-Dhuhr ended at this time, and the second day Salat al-Asr started at this time. That's how the ulama understood the hadith, by combining between the other evidence. Anyway, the time of Asr end when the Dhuhr time, when the thing equal to its length. Okay, and that's the majority of the fuqaha said there is no buffer or there is no time between to combine between them. The Shafi'iyya, the Hanabila, the Ahnaf, some Maliki like Ibn al-Arabi. The Maliki, no, the majority said there is. Also, it's riwayah an Muhammad, an Abi Hanifa rahimahullah, and Abu Yusuf and Muhammad ibn al-Hasan. They said that there is no period between the two salah. طيب. So the Asr time, it starts with the Dhuhr end, as the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وقت الظهر إذا زالت الشمس وكان ظل الرجل ما لم يحضر وقت العصر وقت العصر ما لم تصفر. So the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the Dhuhr all the way until the shade is equal to its length, as long as the Asr time comes. So when Asr time comes, basically we move from Dhuhr to Asr. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam prayed, basically that's where the Asr start. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to pray Asr, and when he finished Asr, still the sun so strong, like what you heard in the hadith. He said, and the sun was white, the heat was strong, and the sun was high, وَالشَّمْسُ مُرْتَفِعَةً. All these hadith that you just heard. And then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, one time, in hadith Jibreel, he prayed Asr sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam in the second day. So the first day he prayed Asr when the shade was equal to its length. The second day he prayed Asr when the shade was double the length. Double the length. So that means late during the daytime. Okay? And that's in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was prayed to show the end of Asr time, and that end was the end of the recommended. So after the shade is doubled, which became very near to Maghrib, this is very disliked to pray. This time is very disliked to pray. But you have Asr from the shade is equal to the length of the object, or double the length of the shade. All this is the time for Asr. طيب, Anas radiallahu anhu said that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to pray Asr and the sun is up high. Then we will go to Al-Awali. Al-Awali is far away, like a distance. And we reach Al-Awali and still the sun up high. Listen carefully. When the shade is double, the sun is not high up in the sky. That means the sun is coming closer to Maghrib. But he said we prayed the Prophet ﷺ and the sun still up high. And Nawawi rahimahullah said, and this is a distance, milayn or thalatha, between the Masjid al-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Al-Awali. It's a quite distance. So that means the Prophet prayed Asr in a very early time. And that's something that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commonly used to do. The Hanafi scholars disagree with that. The Hanafi scholars said, no. Asr prayer start when the shade of the object is double. Not one, not equal to the length of the object. No, when it is double the length. مثليه. طيب. And that's the majority of the late Hanafi. By the way, there is riwayah of Abu Hanifa goes with the Jumhur, which is you pray time according to the Shafi'i and the Hanbali and the Maliki. And one riwayah, and that's Abu Yusuf and Muhammad bin Hasan al-Shaybani as well. But the late Hanafi scholars disagree with that. And the famous riwayah from Abu Hanifa also I disagree with that. What's the Hanafi's proof that you pray that late? Because Jibreel, he showed the Prophet the beginning and the end. So Jibreel hadith is not going to be like a good proof. Because in the first day he prayed in the beginning of the time, and he prayed in the end when the shade was double. So what's their proof? They have several evidence, but the strongest evidence that they have is quite interesting. They said, there is a hadith in Sahih Bukhari, hadith Abdullah ibn Amr, hadith Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu wa an abih, that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the example of you and the nations before you, like between you, comparison between the Muslim, Jews and Christians. He said, the people of the Torah, the Jews, work from the sunrise all the way to Dhuhr time. Okay? And they were so exhausted, so tired, and they were given qirat, a reward of qirat, a certain amount of reward. Okay? Then the people of Al-Injil, okay, the Christian, work from Dhuhr all the way to Asr. And they were exhausted. Then they said, and they were giving a reward of qirat as well. Then us, the Muslim nation, came after Asr, and we work from Asr to Maghrib, and we were given 2 qirats. So the Jews and Christians said, Ya Allah, how come we work longer time and we given 1, and they work short time and they were giving 2? Okay? They were giving 2. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, did I do any injustice to you? They said, no. And he said, so this is my favor, I give it to whomever I wish. I treat you fairly, I give you a reward, but I favor whomever I want. The hadith of Bukhari. How this hadith related to our topic? Al-Kasani, which is a great Hanafi scholar, said, he said, the hadith saying that the Muslim Ummah, the time of their work was shorter than any other nation before us. That's why we believe Asr should be very late, when the shade is double, near Maghrib. That's why it's short. Otherwise, if you pray Asr, when the shade is equal to its length, like what the Jumhur said, they said that will be a long period of time. It will be almost equal to or more than the Dhuhr to Asr. So they said that must be, Asr time is very close. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah said, I'm always surprised by this argument. He said, everybody knows that the time between Dhuhr and Asr is much longer than between Asr and Maghrib in any day in the year. And he said, you calculate it. From Dhuhr to Asr is always longer than Asr to Maghrib, according to our madhab. And he said, I don't know where the Hanafi came up with that from. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, there is no actually anything in the hadith saying that Dhuhr and Asr is bigger or no. All of them, the Jews and the Christians, complaining about why they got double reward and we didn't. If you combine both of us working together, we have much longer time than them. So he said, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, the hadith doesn't really break it down into that. And Ibn Hazm rahimahullah said, anybody knows a little bit about the signs of the sun and the moon and the sun, understand, he said, that's a common sense, that Dhuhr to Asr is longer than Asr to Maghrib. And he was very strong. And Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, Ya lillahi al-ajab. He said, Ya Allah, as things like is amazing. It's not amazing, it's very strange. He said, where in this hadith, it shows that Asr start when the shade is double. The hadith said they work from Asr to Maghrib. So you Hanafi claiming and saying, so that means it has to be shorter than any other period. He said, where in this hadith you came up with that condition when the shade of the thing is doubled? That condition that you put, double the shade, where you got it from? This hadith has any indication to what you guys claiming. He said, if there is anything this hadith will show, that Asr to Maghrib is a short period of time. But it didn't say exactly how long or when it to start or when. He said, you made that up. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah is very strong. He said, the problem with some of the fuqaha that already have an idea, then they look for an evidence to support the idea. It's not that their idea based on the evidence. And he was very strong in relation to this. And he talked about this is a wrong methodology of researching. And it's really worth reading in I'lam al-Muwaqqi'in. Also, they said, they have basically many evidence, but none of them ever was explicit. Like for example, they tell you, we know for sure when the Dhuhr time end, but we don't know for sure when the Asr time start. Who said that? The hadith is there is a hadith clear about this. It's not clear to you, it's clear to others. Okay? So they said that's why we delay to make sure that it is on the time. And that's one of the Sarkhasi, for example, mentioned that in his book, in Mabsut. Anyway, they have other evidence about al-Ibrad wa ghayro. And there is no really any clear evidence that the Hanafi have, not a single hadith, not a single narrations from the Sahaba support the concept that the Nabi Sallallahu used to delay Asr purposely or pray Asr late, or the Nabi recommended that. And the problem is that they do believe if you pray before that time, your salah is invalid. And that's a very serious position. Everybody agree that it ends with the sunset. Okay, everybody agree that it ends with the sunset. Why? Because the Nabi Sallallahu said, if you catch one rak'ah before the sun goes down, you prayed Asr. In the hadith, in one of the hadith, the authentic hadith, if you pray one rak'ah, you make the ruku' before the sun goes down, you have catched Asr. But no doubt, this is praying in the very, very end. Tayyib, Sheikh, didn't the hadith just said, we pray Asr until the sun becomes so yellow? That's 20-30 minutes maybe before Maghrib. Yes, al-ulama said, Asr specifically, it has a30 which is, you're allowed to do this. After the yellowish of the sun, when the sun became near Maghrib, like 30 minutes or 30 minutes or so before Maghrib, in this 30 minutes, as-salah is highly disliked. And in Nabi Sallallahu said that this is the salah of the hypocrites, that they delay Asr until before Maghrib and they pray. So that's why Nabi Sallallahu when he put the time from here to here, because that's what the Muslim should aim for. But let's say you overslept or get distracted, whatever, and you are before sunset, before the sun goes down, you still, if you catch one rak'ah before the sun goes down, you pray Asr. Okay? And the Maghrib, when the sun goes down. Okay? And when you see the night comes. Until the shafaq disappear. I want to also you to pay attention to something about Maghrib time. When we see the sun goes down, most of the calendars, they calculate this based on what? On the sea level. On the flat. In Houston, we're lucky. We're flat like a pancake. Okay? We're flat surface. But let's say you go to a place or you live in high-rise building. Your Maghrib time became different. You have to add more minutes to your Maghrib. Because you're up, so the sun will not be down yet. Because you're high. Those who live in the mountains, those who live in a very, and high, not like 6, 7 floor, 10 floor. I'm talking about something like 20 floor or something like that. In the 20th, or like you go to New York, 100th floor, or like in Dubai, or like, Hong Kong and stuff like that. You have to add time And if you look into some of the timetable, it says to you, are you living in higher place or lower surface? They give you the option. So if it ever happened to be like an airplane, for example, you have to add that amount of time, because when you go up, the sun's still not down yet for you. So pay attention to this when it comes to the Maghrib time. So when the Maghrib time ends, the time is said in the Shafaq. The Shafaq, it is the redness in the sun. And Al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah reported this from a large number of companions: Umar, Ali, Ibn Abbas, Ubadah ibn Samit, Abu Hurairah, Shaddad ibn Aus. And by the way, if you're ever interested to know what's the companion's position in any matter of fiqh, you immediately consider the following references or the following books: Sunan al-Bayhaqi, Musannaf Abd al-Razzaq, and Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah. These three books care a lot about documenting what the Sahaba said and what the early generation said in every matter. Others as well, but this is very good resources because it has isnad in it. So Ibn Umar said, Al-Shafaq wal-Humra is the redness. Okay. Also, large number of the Tabi'een took the same position, like Sufyan and Ibn al-Mundhir said that this is the position of Ibn Abi Layla and Ahmad, Malik, Sufyan al-Thawri, Abu Thawr, Dawood, some Hanafi like Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, and some other scholars said no. It's a white color that comes after the redness. SubhanAllah, if you watch the sun goes down, it becomes so red. Then after the red goes down and almost disappear, there's like a white color, like a light after that. And that color, you can see it very clear, especially in the northern atmosphere more. I noticed that in England, and when I go to Europe or Canada, you can see it even more clear. And this is basically stayed after the redness for about 12 minutes. Okay? Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, Al-Muzani was a Shafi'i scholars, Ibn al-Mundhir, Shafi'i scholars, they said Al-Shafaq is that white color. So the Hanafi and some Shafi'i consider Isha 12 minutes after what the majority of the fuqaha said. And so don't be surprised when you see in the calendar the Isha time is different from one to another. But I do believe that the correct opinion, the first, which is the redness of the sun, because that's what the the language Arabic, that's what it supports, and the majority of the companion also said that. The Isha time, you now understood the difference between the color. It starts from the redness of the sun, the disappearance of the redness of the sun, or that white color. We already talked about those. I don't know if I need to go to the evidence of each madhab, but that's good. For me, just to understand, there is a 12 minutes between the Hanafi and the rest of the Jumhur. So the Hanafi delay Asr and the Hanafi delay Isha. Okay. It ends, there is three opinions among the scholars when it ends. Number one, I'll go simplified for you. Isha stayed until the mid of the night. That's the first opinion. After mid of the night, Isha ended. Okay? And this is the choice of one opinion among the Shafi'iyya rahimahullah. And this is Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen was very strict about that. Shaykh al-Albani as well. And it is Ibn Hazm's position. And a very famous scholar from the Shafi'iyya scholars named Abu Sa'id al-Istakhri. And their proof, they said basically that أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل. غسق الليل, it is the darkest point of the night. إلى, until the darkest point of the night. And they said the darkest point of the night in the middle of the night. طيب. Then they said, listen carefully. أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل. Then what? وقرآن الفجر. I don't know. Just so أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس. Establish the salat when the dhuhr comes time, when the sun move. Okay. لدلوك الشمس إلى until the night. Because in between all this, time for the salah. Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Until Isha. So he said, ila, until. Comma. And the Fajr prayer is witness. So, and pray Fajr in another word. Question. If Isha extend all the way to Fajr, would you say comma and, or you should say pray from Dhuhr until Fajr? So they said, since Allah differentiated between the two, He said until the middle of the night, or until Ghasaq al-Layl, and Quran al-Fajr, as if the Fajr is not connected to what is before that. قالوا هذه واو الابتداء. You start a new time. So they said from middle of the night until Fajr is not a time for any obligatory prayer. That's their evidence. This is very strong evidence that they have. Also they said, Muslim reported that waqtul isha'i ila nisf al-layl al-awsat, the time of Isha until the mid of the night. And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed once in the middle of the night and he said, this is the time of Isha and I don't like to delay it because people go sleep. The second opinion, they said no. Salat al-Isha until the mid of the night, the best time to pray. But from the middle of the night until Fajr, it's permissible. It's like what we said about Asr. Until when the shade is double, is permissible. After that, near sunset, it is allowed, but is highly disliked. And they said the same thing for Isha. Okay? And they said why? Because the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Man akhara as-salata hatta yadkhula waqt as-salat al-ukhra." If you miss the prayer or you delay the prayer until the next prayer comes. So this hadith shows that every prayer followed by another prayer, except Fajr, by consensus. But the hadith said that every prayer until the next one comes. So that means all of them after one another. Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr. So they are all connected. If you miss one, you know the following one comes in immediately. And they said, as the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the time of Isha in the middle of the night, that's the best time, but it doesn't exclude the rest. So there is the third opinion. Basically, it's until 1/3 of the night. Not half of the night, 1/3 of the night. قالوا ثلث الليل. So you basically, in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam prayed with Jibreel, Isha, in the second day, when 1/3 of the night gone. So they said that's the end of the salat. And it is one opinion among the Hanabila and some the Shafi'iyya, and this is the very famous opinion among the Maliki as well. هو المشهور في مذهب مالك الحقيقة. It is the common opinion among the Maliki. Fajr prayer. All Muslims agree that Fajr prayer start with the true Fajr, not the false Fajr, when the true Fajr appear. Okay? وقت صلاة الصبح من طلوع الفجر. And it end when? It end as the vast majority of the scholars, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali, it end with the sunrise. The beginning of the sunrise, not the end of it. When the sun start coming up or out, that's where Fajr prayer ended. Okay? أول قدر من طلوع الشمس مش كله. And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said ما لم تطلع الشمس. You pray Fajr until, as long as the sun didn't come out. So when the sun comes out, that's it. وفي رواية قال ما لم يطلع قرن الشمس. يعني appear from it anything. When it appear from the sun, that end the salah. And this is in Hadith Sahih Muslim. Okay. That's why in Hadith Abu Musa al-Ash'ari said, we prayed Fajr, and when we finish Fajr prayer, we say, قَدْ طَلَعَتِ الشَّمْسِ أَوْ كَادَتْ. We finish Fajr prayer right before the sun came out. So they finished the Fajr before the sun came So that shows you that the Fajr, from the Fajr appearing of the true Fajr all the way to the sunrise. Okay. So, to wrap it up, the Jumhur said it is highly recommended for you to pray in the beginning of the time. The Hanafi said it's highly recommended in the end of the time. When it's basically fil isfar, when the light is, when it's more light on the horizon. Okay? But believe it or not, some Shafi'i said if you pray when there's light in the horizon, even before the sunrise, that's invalidate the salah. وقول عند بعض الشافعية, but it's not a strong opinion. We do believe that you pray in Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, most of his Salat al-Fajr was in the beginning of the time when it's still dark. Most of the Salah was in the beginning of the time, and you will come many evidence to show you that later on. So, to wrap it up, Fajr, from the true Fajr appear until the sun rise. Dhuhr, from the sun moving from the middle of the sky toward the west until the shade of the object to be equal to its length. Asr, from it equal to its length until the sun set. Maghrib, from the sun set all the way to the redness of the horizon. Isha, from the redness of the horizons, of disappear of the redness of the horizons until Fajr. And that's what I do believe the strongest opinion of this whole timing of the salah. But now you get to know what are the difference between the scholars. And we call this waqtul ada. You pray it in the time. You pray it in the time. If you pray it after this, it's called qada. If you pray it after, like you pray dhuhr, after the asr enter, this became qada al-dhuhr. If you delay dhuhr intentionally for no valid reason until asr, or asr until maghrib for no valid reason, there is a debate. Can you even pray it qada or not? Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said no, it's not, and it's not acceptable, and it's not allowed. If you have no valid reason to delay the salah until the next salah time comes in, you don't have the leverage, you don't have the privilege, you don't have the authority to make it up. If you missed it, you missed it. Because only qada was ordained for those who missed the salah for a valid excuse. Not for someone who doesn't want to pray, or like lazy, or doesn't have a reason when I watch a TV or watch a match or a game, then after that. If you forgot, you got distracted by the game and you didn't remember, that's fine. But you know the salah comes and you just ignore it intentionally, you can make it up after the time, according to Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, but the majority of the fuqaha said you can. Yes? No, the sunnah prayer, you can make it up if you missed it.
No, but the stipulation of, let's say, for example, the time of Dhuhr. So if one prays until right before Asr, then the same applies where one praying the sunnah of Asr.
Yeah,
right
yes. Associated with the time, yes. Yes. I'll come to you. She raised her hand first. Yes.
Zawal time at the Zuhr just before Zuhr or not?
Zawal, it means when it moved from the middle of the sky toward the west. That's Zawal.
That is around 5 minutes or 7 minutes.
Yeah. If you follow, I will talk this maybe next time. I have a comparison between Isna calendar and Al-Qura calendar to show you the differences between them and why there's differences between them. And you find that there is 25 minutes between them in Fajr. There is about 12-13 minutes between each other when Isha comes. And now you can understand why. For Fajr, because Al-Qura calculated actually with the false Fajr, not the true Fajr. And that's a problem. Also Maghrib, they have differences. And Al-Qura also have another problem when it comes to Isha, that they calculated different. They don't go with the Shafaq al-Ahmar. It's not a very accurate way, and there is a lot of promises that it will be redone The more accurate one that I will highly recommend you to follow is the one that known as ISNA. Even now ISNA said that's not really them. But it is known in the apps as ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. Yes, sister?
Someone is very neutral about it.
Say that again?
Someone is very neutral about it, but that valid reason is continuous. For example, every day they get out of work at like 5 or 6 and they just do it continuously. So what should be done to that?
A person should try to make time to pray during work. That's not become a valid reason. Alhamdulillah, we live in a country where they respect your religion. You take 5 minutes on your lunch break and you go pray Dhuhr. 5 minutes break. Even if you don't smoke, you still can give you 10 minutes smoke break. Yes?
The hadith you mentioned, Jibreel alayhi salam, when he came the first day, he told the Prophet sallallahu the prayer. Then he came the next day, he gave him a different time, so he could show him the time. So basically, back then, they didn't have like what we have right now.
Watch.
So why do we have to look at the sun, the shawwal?
Very good. To understand why we said this, today we have watch. But what if you are in a position where there is no watch? What if you are camping? What if you, that's one. Two, I want you to understand how the calendar was made. Because this is how the rules in Sharia is meant to be something fits everywhere all the time. What if there is this disappear, this technology? You know, that's number. And also, I want you to understand where they're coming from. So when you see differences between the fuqaha, why this start is because of this. You understand where the difference is coming from. The difference between calendars, you understand from it.
Another hadith,
Yeah, but that's why you need to know when it starts. To be praying on the beginning of the time. Yes, sister. We need to pray. So last one, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So my question is regarding sujood as-shukr. Are there
Oh, sorry. If it's not related to what I said, I will answer it after salah. But I will just keep the question related to what we said.